The industry is being challenged. We're seeing revenues down, and while there are a couple of firms that have had a good quarterly return, most of the industry is kind of financially fighting it out and duking it out. One of the things that I think have challenged the industry is how we invest in technology and how we use technology and how we manage technology within these large organizations. With me to discuss this is Simon Moss. Simon is the CEO of Pneuron. Does all this legacy infrastructure and the whole requirement of Dodd-Frank and EMIR and MiFID and the whole idea of all this regulatory and risk reporting, will all of this kind of strangle these organizations' ability to make money and function? And how do we wind up managing technology in this difficult environment?
If you put your perspective in the view of the regulator, they tend to look at regulations as different lenses, looking at the same set of assets, same set of data. And so when financial institutions, healthcare firms, any enterprises go back to the regulators and say, hey, this is going to take us a lot of time, the immediate answer they have is why? Because regulations have been around for a couple of decades now. We should have been able to sort this out. The reason why that disconnect is happening is really the way that we've deployed technology in the last 20 years. The traditional approach of saying, before we can create value, before we can create transparency, before we can optimize a workflow, before we can do a regulatory report or understand our customers, we need to identify, normalize, move, store, and then optimize data all in some sort of central construct, some central repository. It is that mindset, that spending 70 cents in every single dollar of every business project that we do, that will undermine our ability to be agile and transparent and deal with many of these regulatory challenges.
So all of this data is split up and distributed in vertical silos in different places and different databases from here all around the world.
And they become a big data issue. They become a technical monolithic challenge only if you need to centralize it. And so there is a school of thought which we at Pneuron hope are leading the way, that says it doesn't matter how fast you optimize a database. It doesn't matter how fast elements like distributed processing that Hadoop bring and elements like that speed up the database. Eventually, the distribution, the diversification of the organization in different asset classes, different geographies, different business units is going to undermine this whole preconception and prerequisite of saying we got to get all the data in one place. We've got to get all the IP in one place. And it is that presupposition that we need to challenge, unless we truly are going to undermine our effectiveness.
So in effect, what you're saying is this whole idea that, look, I can't analyze the information if it's scattered all over the place. Let me create conduits of all these systems, bring all this data into one place. Let me normalize all that data. Let me analyze it, and then I can run a whole set of reports. But until I can get all this normalized and into one database, I can't do anything. And that's, that way of thinking is a problem. So how should folks be thinking about solving these issues?
Well, at Pneuron, and forgive me for blowing our own trumpet here, we're looking at this in a very different way. We are essentially taking the prerequisite of a centralized database and normalization structure out of the picture. And we're using the client's network to distribute, so essentially to reverse the paradigm of saying, I have to bring all the data to the analytics, but rather doing the complete reverse and taking the analytics to the data. But the control point of that is the most important element. So we are really building very, very powerful distributed networks that allow our clients to maintain and control the analytical routines that they have. And those analytics could be coefficients, could be a third party, could be an entire legacy application that would traditionally be stuck in one of the technology silos that wasn't accessible in the past. We are, in that way, platform and technology agnostic. But the critical point for us is we need to maintain, deploy, and manage the ability to distribute the analytics out to the data, irrespective of where it is, and manage it and consolidate it in such a way that reporting is uniform, is real time, and completely bypasses the need of traditionally integrating all of this data, integrating all of this IP into some sort of common format, which has so increased the cost of doing business in the past.
So you know, when I think about you know, doing an enterprise risk management platform, you know, for, you know, a top 50 bank or whatever, you know, in a centralized way, if I'm, you know, what would be like the comparison? Are we looking at, you know, 1/5 the cost, 1/10 the cost, 1/100th the cost?
That's great.
Of looking at, you know, distributing.
I wish it was 100th of the cost, I really do. But the empirical data that we're getting is we are looking at time to value, time to market, cost, by about a 60% reduction against the traditional mechanisms that we're seeing. How are we doing that? Well, we're taking out the really large systems integration, data integration components. We're leaving the data where it is. Mm-hmm. We're taking out the prerequisite that you need to buy computationally intense hardware. Okay. So Pneuron requires no additional hardware and actually runs on the available CPU and I/O within the existing server environments that the customer has within their data centers.
So you would, in effect, take the analytics of Algo or take the analytics of Murex or Calypso or whatever, and then leverage them throughout the organization, running on data that's, you know, basically housed by other platforms? That's correct.
And then, but let's be clear, the risk management calculation is going to run across multiple different sources, right, multiple different data environments. So the secret sauce is
how do I make sure that
that
analytics stays intact and is
and the counterparty analysis,
right,
for Larry Tabb in System 1 is the same Larry Tabb as Tabb, Larry in System 2. And it is that reconciliation and that ability to distribute that and maintain it that allows us to go and talk to clients and say, let's talk about your global stress testing analysis, which, you know, in essence is 8 to 9 feet of paperwork, right, bringing out different data, different sources, different outputs. And let's make that a real-time environment that allows you to look at sensitivity analysis across your entire enterprise on your iPad, click on elements that have deviated against those metrics, and click down to the business unit, to the system, to the individual prop trader that may have been the individual that breached that capital line. Now we're able to do that because we're taking out of the picture these giant intermediary steps of got to make all the data look the same. Got to put it into some sort of data repository.
Got to have a stack of hardware.
Got to buy computationally intense hardware to run this. Got to do a 4 or 5 hour batch window just to get it all optimized.
Yeah, to dump it and load it.
You take all of those out of the equation, and and the innovation of the business is freed up.
Interesting.
The IT guys also like what we're doing because it allows them to focus on discipline and rigor instead of constantly getting new demands.
Well, with that, I think we're gonna cut it there. Simon, thanks
Larry,
for joining me. Simon Moss, CEO of Pneuron Technologies. I want to thank everyone in TabbFORUM land for joining. I'm Larry Tabb, founder and CEO of Tabb Group, and have a great day.